This happened not too long ago. I'm 35 and often stay late at work, fighting software problems while everyone else is sleeping. The drive home is usually quiet, just me and the sound of my tires on the asphalt under the moonlight. I think it was a Wednesday night when I first saw it. I turned a corner and there was a dark figure by the side of the road. It just stood there. I shrugged it off, thinking it was a lost jogger or just my tired eyes. I kept driving. It didn't seem like anything to worry about. At least that's what I told myself. The next night, I drove the same route, and sure enough, the figure was closer. My heart started to race. It stood motionless, and a chill crept up my spine. I felt uneasy. I tried to focus on the road, but then I heard a soft tapping sound. It was rhythmic, like someone lightly drumming a finger. I glanced around, but there was nobody near my car. I felt my palms get sweaty. Maybe I was just overthinking it. Then came the third night. By now, I felt on edge. I saw the figure again, closer than before. My heart raced as I drove past. It felt like it was watching me. The tapping began again, louder this time. It sounded like it was right against my window. I refused to look. I felt cold inside the car, like the temperature dropped suddenly. It was hard to breathe. I wasn't sure what happened next. I thought I might be falling asleep at the wheel. I felt a sense of dread, like something was following me. Were the late hours messing with my mind? My thoughts raced. What was really out there? I passed the park again, the twisted trees casting shadows, and I felt the figure was gone. But I kept glancing into my side mirror. What if it was still there, waiting for me in the dark? My heart thudded heavily in my chest. I wanted to reach home without looking back. As I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat for a moment, heart pounding. I didn't want to turn off the engine. What if I stepped out and it was right there? I fought the urge to check behind me. I wanted to convince myself it was nothing. Then it happened. Something knocked on my window. I turned my head quickly, but nobody was there. My breath caught in my throat. I looked down the empty street. I was frozen, fear gripping me. My mind raced, but I couldn't think straight. I finally gathered myself and turned off the car. The silence felt heavy around me. I got out, heart still racing, but the street was empty, not a soul in sight. I locked the door behind me, feeling like eyes were watching from the shadows. I still think about those nights. Was it just my tired mind, or was something really there? I keep replaying the events in my head, hoping to understand, but I still don't know. The next few nights felt like a blur. I went to work, buried myself in code, then drove home, always taking the same route. Each time, I expected to see it again, but the figure didn't appear. I thought maybe I had imagined it or that the stress had finally caught up with me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then came the weekend. I decided to take a different path home. I needed a break from the dread that clung to me like a shadow. The roads were unfamiliar, lined with trees, but the change felt good. Until something caught my eye. A flicker of movement just off the road. I slowed down, my heart racing in my chest. I craned my neck to get a better look. It was too dark to see clearly, but it felt like I was being watched. I hesitated, debating whether to keep driving or to check it out. My curiosity got the better of me. I pulled over and turned on my headlights, illuminating the area. The trees loomed around me, tall and twisted. I felt that same heaviness in the air, the same cold creeping up my spine. As I stepped out of the car, the stillness consumed me. I scanned the surroundings, but all I saw were shadows. That's when I heard it, a soft rustling behind me. My heart jumped. I turned quickly, half expecting to see the figure from before. But again, nothing. Just the dark road stretching behind me. Then a flash of white in the corner of my vision. I whipped around, but again there was nothing there. My breathing quickened. Was my mind playing tricks on me? I stepped back toward the car, hesitant and unsure. Suddenly, I heard it again, clearer this time. Heavy footsteps crunching on leaves. They were coming closer. I fumbled for my phone, ready to call someone, anyone, but there was no service. An icy finger of fear trailed down my back, and I looked around wildly. The rustling continued, but now it was joined by a low humming sound, unsettling and rhythmic, like someone singing a haunting lullaby. My instinct screamed at me to get back in the car. As I turned, I glimpsed a shadow flitting between the trees, darting just out of reach of the light. I didn't think. I bolted. I scrambled into my car, slamming the door behind me. My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys, heart pounding in my ears. I started the engine, the roar of the car cutting through the silence. As I peeled away, I dared one final glance into the dark woods. And there it was, the figure, clearer now than ever before. It was human-shaped, but darker than the night itself, standing just at the edge of the trees. I could see its eyes, unsettlingly bright. It felt as if it was looking right into my soul. I drove home as quickly as I could, fear squeezing at my throat. Once I reached my driveway, I jumped out of the car and ran inside, locking the door behind me. I leaned against it, breathing hard, but the humming lingered in my head. What had I just seen? What was that thing? I hadn't felt that kind of fear before. It wasn't just my imagination. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house brought that figure back into my mind. I thought about what I'd experienced.
And then came another realization. I had left one thing behind. My phone was still in the car. As I lay there, the darkness felt heavier than ever. Was I safe inside, or was something waiting for me just outside my door? I barely slept that night, my mind racing with images of the figure hidden in the trees. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being hunted. Every sound in the house became amplified, the wind howling against the walls, the creaking of the floorboards, the rustle of the curtains. Morning light filtered through the curtains, bringing only a slight reprieve. I still felt uneasy as I got ready for work. I finally decided to grab my phone from the car. My hands trembled as I stepped outside, fully aware that I might not be alone. I hesitated at the door, peering down the dimly lit driveway. After gathering my courage, I walked briskly to my car. The chilly air wrapped around me, and I could practically hear my heartbeat. I fumbled with my keys and opened the door, grabbing my phone off the passenger seat. That's when I noticed it. A piece of white fabric caught on the edge of my seat, fluttering slightly in the breeze. I pulled it free and stared at it, my heart racing again. It was torn, but I recognized it as part of a shirt, or maybe a dress. Panic set in. Who had been in my car? The monster from the night before, or something worse? I could feel the weight of my own paranoia growing, making me want to bolt back inside. But I didn't. I needed to see if it was related to the figure. Driving to work felt like moving through molasses. My mind raced, replaying everything I had seen and heard. I knew that seeking help from someone might be the only way to calm my nerves, so I decided to talk to my coworker, Sarah. She was the most level-headed person I knew. When I arrived at the office, I found her in the break room. I took a deep breath, ready to share my unsettling encounter. But I hesitated. Would she think I was losing it? Instead, I casually mentioned the strange figure. As I spoke, her expression shifted. She looked concerned, then almost surprised. "You're not the first person to report something like that happening out there," she said quietly. "There have been disappearances." A chill ran down my spine. Disappearances? What do you mean? There were rumors. people driving that road at night have gone missing, or reappeared days later, confused and scared. They can't explain what happened. They all mention a feeling of being watched. Panic surged in me, but I also felt a sense of urgency. Did you hear anyone mention a figure, something dark? Just the shadows. But they all described feeling like they were being lured by something. The connection snapped into place for me, weaving together my experience with hers. My instincts hadn't been wrong. I needed to know what was happening in those woods. That afternoon, I found myself stretching the limits of my curiosity.
I decided to drive back to the spot where I had seen the figure. I drove carefully, my heart pulsing with fear and anticipation. As I neared the area, I felt the weight of dread settle into my stomach. I parked on the side of the road, the trees casting long shadows around me once again. I was determined to face whatever awaited me. But as I exited the car, I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement deeper in the woods. That's when I saw it again, watching me from the darkness between the trees. A flash of white. It was unmistakable. I froze, rooted to the ground, as the humming sound began to fill the air again, softer at first, but gaining in intensity. The figure stepped closer, and my mind screamed at me to flee. But something held me there, some pull drawing me closer to the shadows. Then, everything went dark. I blinked, my mind racing as I fought to understand what had happened. I hadn't lost consciousness. It felt more like stepping into another world. The darkness surrounded me, thick and suffocating. I was still standing in the clearing, but the air felt charged, alive with something I couldn't name. Then I heard it. The humming had intensified, an echoing melody that wrapped around me like a serpent. It wasn't just in my ears, it vibrated through my bones. I struggled to breathe, feeling the weight of something pressing down on me. My heart raced as I took cautious steps backward, desperate to escape this invisible force. My vision blurred, but I didn't want to close my eyes. I felt like whatever was watching me was waiting for that moment of vulnerability. A low groan came from the depths of the woods, sending another jolt of fear through me. I turned my head, but all I could see were shadows dancing just beyond the edges of the trees. In a panic, I twisted back toward my car. My feet moved faster than I could think. Each step toward the vehicle felt like a victory, but as I reached for the door, I paused. The humming had stopped. In its place was silence, so profound that it felt wrong. What if it didn't want me to leave? I hesitated, glancing back at the trees. That's when I saw it again, a shadow shifting among the trunks, but it was different this time. The white I had seen before was now nearer, caught in the weak light filtering through the branches. I squinted, trying to make sense of the figure. It stood rigid, arms at its sides, its head bowed slightly. Anxiety surged through me, and I felt the urge to call out, but my voice was stuck somewhere in my throat. Instead, I climbed into my car, slamming the door shut. I struggled to compose myself, hands shaking on the steering wheel. As I looked through the windshield, I noticed something lying on the passenger seat. Another piece of cloth, similar to the one I had found earlier. My breath caught. I picked it up. It felt cold, the fabric thin between my fingers. Ripped edges told me it had been in a struggle. And then I noticed something else. Scribbled in small, shaky letters on the inside was a name, Emily. My pulse quickened. Who was Emily? I quickly searched my mind for any familiarity, but came up empty. Maybe she was connected to the disappearances Sarah mentioned, a victim of this darkness. As I contemplated my next move, the humming returned, but it was stronger this time. It pulsed through the ground, resonating with something deep inside me. I felt a choice forming before me: stay grounded in fear or give way to the unknown. Before I could choose, a loud thud echoed from the woods.
Panic surged. Without thinking, I fired up my engine and sped down the road, the shadows blurring past me. But the name echoed in my mind. I had to find out who Emily was. I had to understand what was happening. And then I realized whatever was lurking out there hadn't finished with me yet. The night air was heavy as I drove, each mile making my heart thud louder in my chest. The rural road stretched out before me, virtually empty except for the occasional flicker of headlights behind me. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that shadow from the woods creeping up on my tail. Just the thought made me grip the wheel tighter. I had to know more about Emily. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was somehow tied to me, even if I had never met her. My mind raced with questions. Who was she? What had happened to her? And why was I the one holding that piece of cloth? I decided I wouldn't be safe until I found out. After what felt like forever, I pulled into my driveway, tires crunching on the gravel. The stillness of my house was jarring against the chaos I felt inside me. I stepped out of the car and hesitated, the darkness around me seeming to thrum in tune with my rising anxiety. Once inside, I flipped on the lights, shadows flaring momentarily before retreating to the corners of the room. I took a seat at the table and spread the fabric out before me. It was a torn strip, maybe from a shirt or a dress. The frayed edges and the name inside added weight to my unease. I reached for my phone, scrolling through contacts, looking for leads. Sarah, I needed to call her. She spoke about the disappearances. Maybe she knew Emily. I started to dial, but stopped. Something wasn't right. Outside, a loud rattle made me jump. I immediately turned to the window and saw it. Something white standing in the moonlight parallel to my back door. My breath caught as I recognized it. A figure just like the one in the woods. An icy wave of fear washed over me. What did it want? My first instinct was to grab my phone, but I didn't want to take my eyes off the shape. It stood still, watching. I could almost feel its gaze piercing through me, measuring me. I glanced to the side table where my keys lay. I had to get out. I had to confront whatever was watching me. But my hands felt glued to the table, heart pounding in my throat again. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the figure began moving closer. I could see it clearer now. Its movements were slow, deliberate. The closer it got, the more the air crackled between us. I couldn't see its face, but there was an overwhelming sense of dread flooding the room. I bolted to the door without thinking, adrenaline pushing me forward. I flung it open, ready to confront the figure, but the night outside felt different, almost serene. The figure vanished as I stepped outside, swallowed up by the darkness, as if it had never been there at all. I turned around, confusion mixing with terror. I stepped back inside, slamming the door shut. Something wasn't right. I needed answers. I needed to dig deeper. But the unknown was pulling me in with a force I couldn't resist. And as I looked down at the cloth again, I knew. I needed to find Emily. The truth lingered just out of reach, and I was ready to chase it down, no matter where it led me. The next morning, I awoke with the name Emily echoing in my mind. I couldn't shake the urge to find her. I poured a cup of coffee and paced around my kitchen, trying to gather my thoughts. A few hours of restless sleep hadn't helped to clarify anything. Instead, I felt more lost than before. I finally made my way to the laptop. A quick search for missing persons in the area brought up several articles, all detailing lives cut short too soon. I found a list and scanned through the names, hoping to see something that would trigger a memory or a connection. Nothing. My heart sank. Then I noticed it. A news story from a year ago. Emily Miller, missing. The details were sparse, but she disappeared on a night much like the one before. My stomach twisted. It felt odd to read about someone so real, someone who had been alive, and now she was just a name. I clicked through the article, absorbing every word. She had vanished while jogging on a nearby trail. The search had spanned several weeks, but eventually faded when no leads turned up. The details about her life began to sink into me. Her photographs showed a vibrant woman with a warm smile, someone full of life. How could she have disappeared without a trace? A sudden tingling sensation at the back of my neck pulled me from my thoughts. I looked over my shoulder as though someone might be there. Just the empty kitchen stared back. I wanted answers, but what if the answers were better left buried? Pushing back a wave of panic, I grabbed my jacket and decided to go to the trail where she'd last been seen. I had to see where she disappeared. Maybe it held the key to what I'd felt last night. As I drove toward the trailhead, a sense of foreboding settled deep in my gut. The sky was overcast, and a light fog hovered over the road. My heart beat quicker with every mile. I parked the car and stepped out, the crisp air biting at my skin. The trail loomed ahead, winding into the trees. I hesitated, instinctively wishing I hadn't come. Then the urge to find Emily surged within me again, and I hitched up my courage. I walked into the woods, each step crunching on leaves and twigs. The quiet felt thick, almost suffocating, but I pressed on, scanning the horizon for any sign of her. Halfway down the path, I stopped. Something caught my eye. There, partially buried in the ground, was a necklace, a delicate silver chain with a small charm hanging from it. I crouched to pick it up, remembering how I'd seen a similar trinket in the photos of Emily. My heart raced as I distinctly heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence hung in the air, but the sense of being watched crept over me again. I turned, and dread washed over me. That's when I saw it, a figure emerging from the trees, just a vague silhouette. It was slightly different from the one I had seen before, but just as unsettling. Everything in me screamed to run, yet I couldn't move. The fear clamped tightly around me as the figure stepped closer, and a whispering breeze followed it like a warning. The figure hesitated for a moment, its outline barely visible against the thickening fog. My instinct told me to flee, but my feet were glued to the ground. It was as if every part of me was engaged in a battle, unsure whether to confront this apparition or retreat into the safety of the trees. "Who are you?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. No answer came, just the sound of the wind stirring the branches above us. The air felt charged, crackling like a storm was brewing. I squinted, trying to make out any details, but the figure remained shrouded in shadow. Then it stepped forward, breaking the tension momentarily as the fog wrapped tightly around it. I saw a glimmer of something in its hand, a reflection in the dim light. It could have been a weapon, or perhaps just a branch. My heart raced, a drumbeat in my ears, as I took a cautious step back. "Please, I just want to know what happened to Emily," I pleaded, my voice shaking. The figure paused, and for a moment I imagined it considering my words. But then, in a swift motion, it darted behind a nearby tree, disappearing from view. The sudden absence of the figure made the woods feel too still, too silent. I breathed heavily, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The necklace lay cold in my hand, a physical connection to the mystery that was spiraling out of control. I had come here for answers, but now I felt more lost than ever. "Come back!" I shouted, regretting the words as soon as they left my mouth. I cursed my curiosity. I should have turned around. I should have just left. But my feet betrayed me again, and I found myself moving deeper into the darkness. I had to know. The thought of facing this figure haunted me, but turning back with nothing would rob me of what little courage I had left. I walked cautiously, eyes peeled for any movement. Suddenly, a laugh rang out, breaking through the silence like shards of glass. It was a low, mocking sound that seemed to twist around me. The chill swept down my spine, and I turned, eyes wide, scanning the dark for any shape or figure. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice shaking with fear. As if to answer, the rustling stopped. In the faint light, I saw the outline of a figure emerged from the trees, ambiguous and menacing. "Help her," the voice mimicked in a haunting melody. My breath caught in my throat. It was like the whisper I had heard before, but this time it was clearer, layered with a chilling familiarity that sent shivers racing through me. "Emily!" I screamed, desperation threading my voice. But the figure just smiled, its face obscured by darkness, and took a step closer. Instinct kicked in. I couldn't stay there, frozen in fear. I stumbled backward, turning to run. The forest floor was treacherous, and branches snagged at my clothes like fingers grasping for me. I didn't look back, adrenaline pushing me forward. Just then, the laughter rang out again. This time it echoed all around, filling the woods. It drowned out my thoughts, replaced with a singular focus: survival. I had to make it to the edge of the woods. Then, everything went silent, and the laughter cut off abruptly. The shock of sudden quietness was deafening. I skidded to a halt, breathless and panicked. What had happened? Was I finally alone? I turned slowly, peering back into the trees. That's when I saw it. Glowing eyes, staring straight at me from the shadows, unblinking and predatory. An instinct screamed that whatever was after me was closer than ever, and I felt a surge of terror that urged me to run again. But paralysis gripped me once more, as the eyes seemed to shift, transforming into a more defined shape. I could hardly believe what I was looking at, the fear tightening my throat. The figure was back, and this time it wasn't hiding. The figure stepped into the faint light, revealing a face that twisted my stomach. It was human, yet not entirely. Features were exaggerated, a mocking smile stretching unnaturally wide. My instincts screamed for me to flee, but my legs felt like stone. "What do you want?" I managed to choke out. The words sounded weak against the stillness of the night. "Help her," it echoed again, the voice now sounding like a warped recording. It took another step forward, the shadows around it growing thicker. My heart raced even faster. I couldn't let it get closer. I spun around and dashed into the trees, branches clawing at my skin. I pushed through the underbrush, praying that I was heading in the right direction. The forest felt alive, but not in a comforting way. It sensed my fear, pushing darkness deeper with every step. Then I heard the laughter again, but it was different now, closer, angrier. My breath quickened. I could almost feel its breath on my neck. I glanced back, heart pounding against my ribcage. The figure moved like liquid, morphing in and out of sight among the trees. Shadows danced, distorting its shape. I ducked behind a massive oak, trying to catch my breath. My mind raced through every possibility. What was this thing? Where was Emily? I squeezed the locket in my pocket, the metal digging into my palm. I focused on it, trying to ground myself. A branch snapped nearby, and I froze. The laughter turned into a cacophony of whispers, each one more frantic than the last. "Help her," echoed around me. I felt a surge of anger mixed with fear. "Stop!" I shouted, the words tumbling out. "Where is Emily?" Silence followed. I strained to listen, hoping for a response. Just as despair threatened to swallow me, I caught a glimpse, something white fluttering in the moonlight. I stepped out from behind the tree, a part of me wishing to stay hidden. The movement drew me in. I raced toward it, stepping cautiously, brighter rays of light cutting through the darkness like a beacon. As I got closer, I realized it was Emily's scarf, tangled in the bushes. Heart racing, I reached for it, my pulse racing with hope. But the moment I touched it, the ground beneath me began to tremble. It felt as if the forest was shifting, responding to my action. Before I could make sense of it, roots burst from the earth, twisting around my legs like serpents, dragging me down. Panic surged, but I fought against the constricting tendrils, clawing at the earth, desperate for a way out. I couldn't let go of the scarf. I couldn't. I needed to find her. Just as it seemed I would be swallowed whole, the laughter rang out again, but this time it felt further away. The roots loosened their grip, and I pulled free, stumbling backward. Heart pounding, I tried to gather myself, but fear clawed at my mind. What was this thing, and why did it want Emily? I scanned the area, dread pooling in my stomach. I couldn't let it catch me off guard again. I picked up the scarf, holding it tightly, about to turn and run, when a voice spoke again, soft and chilling. "You're not alone." I hesitated, dread settling in my bones. The figure was back, crouched low, eyes glinting with a malevolent shine that sent shivers racing down my spine. I had to run. I couldn't stay here. I launched into the trees, fueled by sheer terror. But as I sprinted through the thickening shadows, I couldn't shake the feeling that something even worse awaited me deeper into the woods. The forest closed in around me, branches reaching like deceptive fingers as I sprinted forward. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the whispers, "Help her," that echoed all around. I had lost all sense of direction, the path blurring under my frantic steps. This was madness, yet I couldn't stop. Just then, I spotted a clearing up ahead, a faint glow emanating from within. My instincts told me to turn back and hide, but part of me hoped the light might illuminate the truth behind this nightmare. I skidded to a halt at the edge, trying to catch my breath and steadiness. As I stepped into the clearing, what lay before me was hauntingly beautiful. A circle of trees glowing with an ethereal light, their bark shimmering softly like silver. In the center, a pale figure knelt, dark hair cascading down like a curtain, partially covering her face. My heart dropped. "Emily?" I gasped, hope surging within me. The figure lifted her head slowly, revealing hollow eyes that seemed more shadow than substance. "You came," she whispered, her voice soft but eerily resonant, like an echo bouncing off the trees. I felt drawn to her, each step toward her a mix of fear and yearning. "What happened? Are you okay?" I asked, desperate to reach her. I crossed the threshold of light into the dense glow surrounding her. But as I stepped closer, I realized with horror that the space around her pulsed like a living entity, a dark aura that pushed back against me. "Leave this place," she said, her voice trembling now. "You shouldn't have come. It's not safe." "Why? What's happening? I want to help you," I shouted, but the words felt empty. I could feel the air growing thicker, pressing against my chest. It was as if the woods were alive, watching, waiting for something to unfold. Emily's gaze drifted to the trees behind her as shadows shifted ominously, forming shapes that undulated like smoke. The same chilling laughter reverberated around us again, growing stronger until it felt like a storm ready to break. "You don't understand," she whispered desperately. "They want to take you too." Without warning, the laughter intensified, filling the entire clearing, and the shadows began to morph into something darker, more sinister. They crept closer, whispering promises that twisted at the edge of my sanity. I felt my pulse race. This was no longer just about Emily, it was about survival. "Please, you have to fight it," I yelled, my voice drowning in the cacophony of sound. I reached out to her. "Hold on to me. We can get out of here together." But her face dropped into a shadow, and a shiver of despair curled around my spine. The trees began to sway violently, responding to the noise as if they were living extensions of that laughter. A figure emerged from the darkness at the edge of the clearing, mirroring the ones I had seen before, its eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. I hesitated, wavering between Emily's desperate stare and the encroaching figure. "Run!" I shouted, hoping it might break through the haze of fear. "We need to escape." But Emily didn't move. She quickly looked back, as if caught in a trance, her lips barely moving. "You can't. It won't let you go." In that instant, the figure lunged at me. I couldn't think. I turned and ran back through the trees, the air crackling with a palpable energy behind me. Branches thrashed in the wind, tangled hair and limbs clawing at my skin, but I didn't stop.
Driven by pure instinct, I dashed toward the nearest path that might lead me back, desperation pushing me forward. When I finally stumbled out of the trees, my heart thundered in my chest. The clearing disappeared behind me, leaving only the dull echo of Emily's voice. I hadn't turned to look back. I could almost feel the eyes of the shadows watching, waiting patiently for my return. The road was just ahead, beckoning like a siren. I sprinted until the asphalt met my feet, the familiar weight of my car keys digging into my hand. I didn't spare another thought for the tree line. I just needed to get out. As I drove away, the night sky faded into the rearview mirror, the tree line still lingering in memory like an old wound. The fear clung to me, wrapping around my heart. I could still hear that echoing, haunting laughter. The thought of Emily etched into my mind. Was she trapped, lost forever within those cursed woods? Once I reached the safety of my neighborhood, I parked my car with shaking hands. I had escaped, but the air still buzzed with uncertainty. Back in my house, silence felt deafening. I dropped onto the couch, gasping for breath, mind racing through loose threads. Days passed, yet I couldn't shake what happened. Everything in me screamed to forget, to stop looking for answers, to leave Emily behind. But this wasn't some fleeting dream. I could feel her desperation. The urge to understand the truth about what happened in those woods grew louder, echoing in my thoughts like the murmurs of the figure. Help her. I moved to a different city after that. I thought distance would ease the burden. But some nights, with the moonlight spilling through my window, I still see flickers of shadow dancing at the edge of my vision. I wonder if Emily is still there, caught between realities, or if those whispers have claimed her entirely. But mostly, I try not to think about it.